The Mindbody Bold conference was a little bit extra interesting this year. I just got back from Los Angeles downtown. I was at the Mindbody Bold conference because I was speaking on stage about how to broadcast your brilliance, narrative, and how to differentiate your brand really by utilizing those powerful techniques. But here are the largest takeaways from the other talks and the conversations that I was having with all of the wellness entrepreneurs and boutique fitness people at Mindbody Bold. So stick through to the end because we're going to cover the biggest takeaways, what they were stating in the state of the industry, which is congruent with our internal data in the Yogapreneur Collective, as well as some of the things that you can practically implement based off of these learnings, some really specific ideas from a couple of the talks that were actually really good and quite powerful. And I'll even have in there what I think is the #1 company of Mindbody partners who is there presenting and why you should take a look at them right now. So we're going to go all the way through. Okay, takeaway #1, the skill to be able to eat and run is a good skill. This is a little bit of a tangent. It's because honestly, I was going to the first night VIP party for Mindbody. I was lazy and didn't like download the app and all the stuff. Someone said, hey, it's across the street. So I walked across the street, got lost, saw a bunch of people dressed really nice going into this party and thought that must be it. And I'm just wildly underdressed because this is as fancy as I generally get. Turns out I crashed the Emmys after party, which was also at the same hotel at the same time on the first night. I'm standing there. Some guy's like, you want a burger? I'm eating a burger. And finally, someone sees my Mindbody name tag. I mean, I couldn't have stuck out. I don't even know how I made it through security. And they're like, hey, wait, who are you with? And I just slowly crept back with my burger and ran. So skill #1, takeaway #1, follow people dressed nice, take food from them, but then just be ready to sprint out of there. Okay, I digress. The most important things that I noticed or that I took away from the Bold conference, first off, in the state of the industry report, which they always start with, it's fascinating. And the reason why it's fascinating is we're collecting data, we're researching data, we have different sources that we're going to all the time. We have our own internal stuff that we're always talking about in the Yogapreneur Collective. I partner with a lot of other tech platforms and we're asking them what they're seeing in the numbers. But in the end, Mindbody Online is the largest aggregator of boutique fitness and wellness currently. And because they've also purchased ClassPass, they are now significantly larger than everyone else, even like way beyond what they were before. And they have an insane amount of data. They're also putting money into data collection. Now, the scary parts about data is that whoever controls data is often the person who can capitalize on it the most, but it can be very empowering when we get to speak with a company like Mindbody Online and hear what they're seeing in the data, because it can either confirm what we're seeing on the ground and what we're feeling is happening or deny it, which makes us question what the heck is actually going on. Most of what they said was very confirming. The most important takeaway is this for the yoga industry, especially. When we look at the recovery back to 2019 levels, the yoga industry is still one of the industries that is lagging significantly behind. About 30% was the number that they're getting. We were saying 25% is what we're seeing. Maybe our studios that we're working with are performing just a little bit better. But the point is the totality of the yoga industry is still lagging behind. The second confirming thing about this was our numbers are exactly congruent with theirs. 8% of people when the pandemic hit, closed, permanently gone. We'll never see them again. Since then, through the first couple of years, there was about a 20% total loss. And now we're at like 25% of like complete closure. But there's a lot of reopens or lease assumptions or new studios coming back into the market. So that's about what we've seen. And if you go back and watch videos that we put out, you know, literally 2 years ago when the pandemic first hit, or even beyond that, one of the things we'd said was that the scary part isn't right now. The scary part is when this is over and no one's been marketing or advertising. All of your class people are out of the habit of coming to your physical studio and you got to convince them to come back in. There's still fear. And then all of the funding and help and support from the community and governmental programs, etc., has dried up. That's where we are right now. Now, the whole industry is growing on boutique fitness and wellness. It's not hockey sticking, but it's growing. And there's every reason to think that we're going to have the most powerful next decade in boutique fitness and wellness that we've ever seen on record. It's just really being able to be intelligent about it and stick it through and keep going now. So if you're still feeling like your recovery is slower than you want, it might not mean anything other than everyone's just still recovering, and that's what's going on. But why do we think that there's going to be this enormous positive run in the next 10 years? There's a few reasons for this. I'm sure I'll be talking about it more throughout the year as we're putting videos together on this stuff. But when we look at what people are prioritizing now behaviorally as consumers, it's super fascinating because the vast majority of people are prioritizing wellness services over fitness services. So it means the subtle pivot that we're seeing even in the fitness industry on simple things like a HIIT gym or just an organic or just a standard sort of box gym out there is talking about wellness. When we go back and look at the top reasons someone came into a yoga studio circa 2017, 18, 19, it was, in terms of what they would say, it was feel better, like general health. Number 2 was flexibility / strength, something like that. And then the third was cross training for something else. Those are the things which kind of also like weight loss and that sort of stuff falls into there as well. Now, what people are saying is mobility, not flexibility, because there's an understanding of the difference, de-stress or anxiety reduction, and introspection and feeling good about themselves. Now, I always think about this Krishnamacharya quote from, I think it's like 100 years ago now, where he says, yoga will be India's greatest gift to the world in 150 years of time. We're still on the path. We haven't reached the end of that prediction. And it's because the depth of understanding around yoga has to continue to grow. I can still remember a time in the first studios that I worked in and the first studios that I was even practicing in, the old school joke was like, so you say yoga and someone says yogurt, like, what is it? You still had to explain to people what it is and what it's not and why they should consider it. That's not a thing anymore. Everyone knows what it is and why, it's potentially good for you. Maybe not in its totality and how deep it can go, but they already understand that. So people are prioritizing wellness, not just fitness. What does this mean? It means the major synopsis for any boutique fitness studio out there, so even if you're watching this and you're not a yoga studio, is to have a more holistic approach, basically be a yoga studio. Now, when I say holistic approach, it's from the perspective of your consumer. So the question becomes, how do you offer an experience? Because when polled, especially people in the younger age bracket, 20 to 35, about how they prioritize their money, they're prioritizing it towards experiences instead of things. Wellness is understood as important for their longevity and enjoyment and joy in life. So these two things, if you can make them collide, you're going to win. You're going to differentiate yourself. So how do you offer an experience that's more holistic based on the totality of wellness for the people coming in? People don't just want to be able to touch their toes or just do some stretching postures. We talk about this all the time. If I just want to do some stretching postures, I'll just grab my phone and go on YouTube and learn how to stretch or do a yoga class for free. I don't need to come to you. So we have to think about what happens before, what happens during the class, what happens after the class. What are some other things that you can add in as services that are simple, that are within your wheelhouse, that help amplify the effect of the yoga practice? How do people live when they're outside of the studio and outside of your virtual classes in VOD? And how do you have some more influence in a positive way there? Because when we look at retention, when we look at business growth, we have to look at it from engagement. People giving you their attention is the most valuable thing that they can give you. But now attention is not just when they're in the studio. So yes, we want to increase the frequency that your average person is practicing, but we also want to increase, or sometimes we can't increase the frequency. They're coming 2-3 times a week. Like, that's it. That's all they can do. But that doesn't mean that we can't increase the number of engagement points on average per month, the number of times they give you some attention, by being a larger portion of their lives, a little bit more holistic. So these secondary value services outside of just a standard class, they're things that many people have already dabbled in, have already added, but maybe haven't, or they've organically come up, but there hasn't been like a really specific strategy around it. As a quick rattle off some ideas for you if you're interested in and what to look at for this, any sort of enrollment or series, 6 weeks to this, 8 weeks to that, how to do a handstand, touch your toes for the first time, whatever. Hyper specific workshops, and keep your workshops on a regular schedule. So not like we're doing a workshop on how to do this yoga class. It's we're doing a workshop specifically on forward bending only, including the drills for that. And it's shorter. And the workshops appear like every third Thursday at 7 p.m. or every second Saturday or whatever. Just forever, it becomes part of the business. Retreats are obviously part of it, but the bigger piece of retreats is the idea of community. People want to be part of a community. That's not the first thing they're going to go buy, but it's the thing that it's going to increase your stickiness, because community creates context. So when you go to a retreat, you're creating this little tighter community, or you can have digital communities, etc. Teacher trainings, both big and small, and then other things like breath work, nutrition coaching, private lessons, think more like personal training, having follow-ups and tests, etc., etc. These are all potentially part of what you could offer. And then the obvious stuff such as swag and retail in there as well. More holistic. What are people interested in? You know, if you had breath, meditation, yoga, retreat, online community, and teacher training, if you can get all of those engines running, you're going to have a very robust business moving forward, and people are going to spend more engagement with you rather than going to a whole bunch of other places. Okay, so then when we continue on some of the big takeaways, I went to a lot of different talks, and other than saying my talk was amazing and that was the one that had the best takeaways, the other talks that I found really, really fascinating, and where there was a lot of conversation, were around two major subjects. The first was machine learning and artificial intelligence. Now, this is not a new conversation. Part of this is a lightly veiled attempt at Mindbody to get more people using Mindbody AI, Mindbody Messenger, which I do think if you're using Mindbody Online is a good idea. If you're not using Mindbody Online, it's worth looking at Messenger bots. The reason for this is behaviorally on the consumer side, what we're seeing is that someone does something such as go to your website, and even though they could click the navigation to go to your schedule and see when a class is, or they could click pricing and see what you've got, or they could click intro offer and go to that landing page, if that button is there, a significant percentage, we're seeing like minimum 20%, in a lot of studios, it's like 60 to 75% of people click the bot button and type the question in rather than clicking 2 more times to get the answer to the question. Now, I don't know if I would call that laziness, but it's a behavioral differential. It's like, why would I search for something when it can just be served to me? So AI is going to play into a lot of different areas in the fitness wellness industry, ways that we have like way off our normal radar. But the current one to pay attention to is how AI can basically take some of the load off of staffing and allow for a better customer experience by answering their questions in sort of a choose your own adventure way. That would be the way that I would look at it. If you want more information on that and a whole bunch of ranting on it, I've got all sorts of things to say. Post it in the comments down below, and I will make another video on it. The second major subject matter, which is directly related to what we just said, is staffing itself. Everyone's struggling with staffing. Now, the thing about the struggle with staffing right now that's really interesting is we're looking at it like this, you know, the great resignation. People aren't going to be participating anymore in the same way. But the truth is there are tons of people looking for work and happy to do good work, but that's not the same as them wanting to work in jobs that suck. So everyone knows that that's true. Like the people are still there, just what they want to do is different. So the big takeaway from this is realizing that the dynamic in hiring has shifted, and we've been promoting this for a long time, but it's getting really extreme now, where you have to look at, when you're looking for staff, you might get more specific about what they do. So you're not hiring one person to do a bunch of stuff. You're hiring a specialist person to do a specialist task, number one. And number two, you're not putting out a job description when you're looking for staff anymore. You're putting out a job advertisement, and you are actively going after people, and you are selling why working for you is going to be the awesomest thing ever. Quick tidbit on this that absolutely works and was confirmed by a lot of the people on the panels and stuff talking about this too. There should just be in your navigation on your website a perpetual, like, we're hiring basically page, and it has the listed positions that you're hiring for, and it has a describer of them that's really awesome. That's just like, should perpetually be there all the time. Big takeaway number 2 that can be really, really empowering around staff for you to understand how to do a better job is we will anonymously poll the students in a studio all the time and ask about things like schedule or whatever else, although that's a whole nother conversation about how to appropriately do that. But we forget to get feedback from the staff. You go and ask them, they're going to say one thing. If they can anonymously give feedback, you're going to mine some really good ideas, and you're going to identify if there's common threads of dissatisfaction in what it is that's going on. So build an engine around that within the business as well. All right, and as promised, Mindbody partners in the Mindbody area where they had all the partners in there with the different options and plugins and everything else. There were quite a few that we've seen before. There were quite a few that were really interesting and sort of like a new take on some of the old stuff. But the one that like drastically stood out to me is called Studio Ease. Studio Ease was previously Subsync, a substitution management system, which is still awesome, by the way, for Mindbody class-based businesses. But the reason why they're cool now is they have a branded app that in my opinion, looks and functions better than the Mindbody branded app. They have a landing page builder and sales funnel process that works better than using Mindbody branded web. So you have, more control over those things. And they do reporting. And the reporting is cool because it comes to you in just a straight up monthly report like this, and can be customized and show you exactly what's going on in the studio. So this potentially takes out the burden of you as the owner or having someone on your staff doing your monthly KPI report altogether, but still gives you the same metrics in a nice congruent way. So Studio Ease, definitely one to take a look at. Sort of concluding everything here, my big take on this is that Mindbody is sort of the juggernaut in the industry, Bold being one of the biggest sort of get-togethers, let's call it, and conferences out there. A lot of positive things, showing a lot of growth. We're still in the recovery mode, but people have realized the value of wellness now more than ever. So everything is lining up to see this industry sort of explode. And the technology side of things is getting super fascinating, because we will very soon be at a place where the major skill in running your business is actually going to go back to the old school, where the real skill is how you can create that human to human interaction and customize that and teach an amazing class, having a really amazing product, because the majority of all the other stuff is going to more or less be taken care of for you after your initial setup. And that could be a really exciting, really high impact situation that we're walking into. Did you go to Mindbody Bold? What did you think about it? What are your takeaways, questions, thoughts on this? Want to hear from you guys. Post it in the comments down below. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Peace.